Oh,
I was part of the emergency response team that whenever there was a highly combative inmate, whenever there was somebody with a weapon in their cell, I was the first person to go in. And I love doing that. That was my adrenaline rush. I just go into work. I could be having a bad day and hope that someone would test me, hope that someone would take a swing at me or want to throw hands
I
with
see
me
what you're
just to
saying.
get that anger out. And looking back on it now, anger is not the only way to release your emotions. It was just the easiest way and the quickest way to, I guess, kind of get that emotional high to be like, okay, cool. Whatever's going on, I can forget about it. I can focus on this highly volatile situation. Once it's over, I'm going to feel better. I never did feel better. I was just on a warpath for self-destruction. Actually, a fight was what ended my career. Now that I'm a father, now that I'm a husband, I look back on it, I'm like, I could have sacrificed so much of my life just to look for that emotional high that it's not even worth it. It doesn't make sense now because now I have gone to therapy, I have addressed everything, but there's a lot more work that can be done within law enforcement to address mental health, to address depression, anxiety, PTSD, because it still is a stigma within law enforcement.
I don't want to say I would want to get in fights all the time, but I like when we were in narcotics and a guy would like want to fight with us, we'd be like, come on, we're going to beat your ass. And that's just what it is. And that's such an adrenaline rush. But what stuck with me was what you were saying is like, and you're retired. And I think of a lot of these, and I'm retired from the NYPD, but I think of a lot of guys who weren't retired, wouldn't be speaking the way you spoke.
bro, kind of got that junk on. Yeah, nah.
Weren't retired, wouldn't be speaking the way you spoke right now. And the stigma with law enforcement especially is like, you don't want to seek help. Like, you know, because if you seek help, your peers aren't going to want to work with you. They're going to look at you like you're weak and you're going to be the outcast. And then, you know, they're going to take your gun away, your shield away. You're going to have that stigma for the rest of your life. So you find other coping mechanisms or you just don't think about it. Like I never thought about my feelings.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
No, so I'm showing emotions now. I never, ever, ever, ever showed emotions. Because you couldn't.
Yeah.
Because you were weak. And, well,
Come on, get it out, man. Get it out, get it out.
But by not showing emotions, that was, you know, if you show your emotions, you're not weak. Like, you're showing, hey, I need help. Like, we've seen so much that you can't unsee. And after you see it, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And so what do? You go to the bar, you drink. If there wasn't a stigma, if I was active, I wouldn't be talking about this. Like, just what I did now, like, my friend's gonna probably see this and I'm gonna get, you know, they're gonna be like, wow, look at you. If you don't have that right mental state and you're not coming to work the right way, it's just gonna ruin the whole outcome of the day and it's gonna ruin everybody. When it's mine, the people I'm trying to help, then are you really helping them? You're not helping yourself. And we don't get that help. We're afraid to ask for that help.
I appreciate you being
Yeah.
vulnerable and showing emotion because I know I've been in that position a lot. Like, let's say on the drive to work, on the drive from work.
Yeah, nah, that was definitely tough, bro. Bro, you can tell that man definitely done seen some stuff for sure. And man's definitely was holding it in, for sure.
I've just broken down. I don't know why. And like you said, it's due to that stigma of not wanting to seem weak in front of your partners, in front of your lieutenants. You're so afraid of what other people think that you completely neglect yourself. So I really appreciate you being that vulnerable and that open with me.
Yeah. I've done a lot of self-help since I've retired also, and looking back, and could I have done a lot of things differently? And if I had that mental health, so I think if we all spoke to someone we need to, it would make your life, and it would just make everything better. It would make the world a better place.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to see
that was a
every
deep one.
patient and have such a hard time letting go.
That is my secret. So there are times when you do establish a rapport with your patients and they go downhill fast and they look at you and they say, please don't let me die.
Oof.
And so when you're at the bedside and you have a patient saying that to you and you want to provide reassurance and you know that their time is ending, you want to try to do everything you can to make them comfortable. I always wanted to keep with me those morals that I had as a child growing up, or what I learned from my parents. You treat everyone as if they're your family. And I took that with me, and it made it harder. So sometimes it's hard just letting go so easily because you establish that rapport and you make I don't want to say a false promise, but sometimes you think that you can
That you can actually do it.
save their life, and you want to be there to make sure that things are getting done to save their life. And I dealt with that for a long time. It is fulfilling to know that you're able to do everything you can. You know they're not going to make it, and you're able to stand at the bedside and hold their hand. And before they take their last breath, they thank you, and their family thanks you. In the beginning, I would cry with the family. Now, after 20 years of doing this, it has become easier. There are still some situations that affect me, and I'm able to provide love and support. And if I cry, I cry. And I feel like it's okay to cry, because I feel like when family members or when patients see that side of you, you're human. You're being a human. And it's not because you have a white coat on. It's showing that soft side, like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, this is happening, but I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people gonna relate to that. God dang. That seems like it's the... Yeah, nah.
My first traumatic code, I had family run in the room and look at
Intensive
me
care
because I had
unit.
been with this patient for days. They looked at me directly and asked me, Kennedy, what happened? Why?
Did she just say her name is Kennedy?
Traumatic code, I had family run in the room and look at me because I had been with this patient for days. They looked at me directly and asked me, Kennedy.
Whoa. I'm not gonna lie. Me personally, I've never seen Kennedy spelled like that. Ever. Ever. I have personally never seen it. That is that's new to me.
What happened? Why is this patient dead? Why is my husband, brother, sister? And to feel that so personally, I remember just like breaking down and having one of my coworkers kind of like grab me and escort me out the room because I really thought I could save everyone.
There's times where I've been months after the call where we couldn't save the person. And I remember one specific call, it came in as a difficulty breather, asthma patient, 29-year-old female. We walk in literally as she's taking her last breath. She goes into cardiac arrest, we work her up. 20 minutes, make base contact, we transport her to the hospital. We had to go available, go on another call. We ended up coming back to the hospital and found out she passed away. And I was like, it was just devastating. You kind of cope with it. But yeah, those are calls that were long lasting.
I had one where a 3-year-old pediatric, and it came from a hospice. Beautiful, tiny little girl, but we get to the ER and everything, and she's just decompensating, and her parents are on the way, and I'm like, why aren't you guys doing anything? Like, why are we just standing here? Like, come on, what are we doing here, you know? And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, guys, like, the stats are going down, like, what are we doing? And they're like, she has a DNR, and I'm like, but she's so young. I just sat there with her to keep her comfortable because I had to realize, like, she has cancer. You know, she's in hospice as a kid. Like, she's in pain all the time. Like, she's at peace now, you know, but just having that, being the last person to hold her while, you know, she took her last breath, then being the person there when her parents arrived. You know, it's hard to hard to cope with. You know, I went home and cried because it happened 2 hours into my shift, and I'm like, okay, let me just go back in. But no, I'm with you. It's hard to cross that of, oh my God, we need to do everything. To say, like, no, what's the best outcome for them? They're at peace. They're dying with dignity. You know, like they're ready to go.
I am desensitized to losses because of my job.
I wasn't exposed to too much death before I became an EMT. And so it was kind of like almost a foreign concept to me. And I feel like when I experienced my first few, you know, I kind of spiraled a lot. I started blaming myself a lot for it, of feeling like I'm not good enough at my profession because we didn't save that person. We work 12, 24, 72-hour shifts sometimes, and if a death happens in the first few hours, you know, you still have a whole shift to work. You really can't let it impact you. You have to clean up the ambulance, clean the blood out, wipe your tears away if you shed any, and continue with your day and go save the next person. And for my own sanity, I had to learn how to be okay with death. I bring home the inability to show emotion. I bring home the inability to fully feel hardship. And, you know, I had my own uncle pass away last summer, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's death. It happens, you know? It's kind of a tricky thing to explain yeah.
Sound like about 5 people. That's right.
I'm literally thinking back to when I was 17 years old. I was an Explorer Scout with a local fire department, and I remember going on my first cardiac arrest call, and the 17-year-old me was like, wow, that person's dead, and now we're on our way back to the fire station.
Just keep going.
And they're kind of like cracking jokes. I'm like, this is
dark
person
comment.
dead, y'all not sad? Like, I felt some kind of way. But now, fast forward, I've been in the fire service almost 20 years after seeing multiple just deaths and people dying. It's like, I compartmentalize a lot of that stuff. Like, okay, yeah, that was sad, and then off to the next one, just like you said earlier with the ambulance. So, yeah, you're not alone.
Relating to being desensitized, we see a lot of death. We see a lot of the worst things that, you know, most people only see in movies and TV, and it definitely hits home. Even when we have loss in our own life, I'm the same way. I have grandparents that have passed recently, and it's just another day.
It is what
It is
you
what
know?
it is, and you know, I get scolded like, why you don't? That's your
1000%.
grandmother. Like, why you? It's like, I done seen 6 people die yesterday.
Like, it's gonna
I understand.
happen.
It's gonna happen. It's part of life. So don't feel alone. You see so much of it, it becomes desensitizing. It becomes numb, and it can be a strength as far as you doing your job because you don't get emotionally invested and you're able to focus. But at the same time, you don't become so desensitized to it that you
It's like a
aren't
give and
able
take.
to perform your life,
Absolutely.
that balance. So, but again, proud of you. Keep your head up. Keep
you.
doing. Keep going.
Thank you. I just want to say it's so cool, like hearing from people who, you know, are of color and who look like me, because I feel like for me, I've been the minority working as a first responder.
Black people are awesome.
Yeah, we rock.
Yeah, bro.
Sometimes I fear this job could get the best of me.
All right, let's hear from bro.
I'm a 3rd-generation firefighter in my family, and I think, you know, as first responders, there's going to be things that we see that we can never unsee.
Bitch.
There's going to be tragedy that we experience that we're going to remember for the rest of our lives, and there's going to be a side of humanity and society that we experience that no one or anyone outside of these professions will experience. I think one of the calls that kind of sticks out to me was a call that was very early on in my career. It was a car accident, and all 3 parties had passed away. You know, I think the one thing that people see, whether it's through TV or the movies, is, you know, they see the scenes that firefighters, you know, may or may not experience, or first responders may or may not experience. But what they don't see is all the other senses. And if we know anything about trauma, we understand that, like, those other senses are what really, you know, causes a memory to last and be imprinted on our brain. And when I think of those calls, and this one in particular, I can still smell the road. I can still see and hear the sounds. of, people trying to break the window to get these individuals, these children out of the vehicle. And I can remember the, 20-minute ride in the back of the ambulance where we were trying to do our best for the one patient, the one child we were transporting, and it being like the longest 20 minutes of your life. But sometimes I think the shocking reality of what you're doing does sink in, and that's one situation that I'll never forget.
So I definitely have the fear. I do my best to not let it, just by understanding that although I have a really big passion for what I do, it's not all of who I am. There's another side of me outside of work. And as demanding as our jobs can be, we have to have something outside of that we can pour our passion into as well.
Yeah, I pretty much felt like this when I was in the ICU and was just dealing with death on a daily basis. It kind of hardened me. And that's when I knew I needed to transition, because I was getting to a point where death was so regular, people were dying, and we just like, okay, we gotta do what we gotta do, like we say, put a tag on them and send them to the morgue, and then put another patient right in that room. Just like you said, those traumatic situations that you just can't forget, they still sometimes keep you up at night.
My whole career, I felt like I could never talk about the trauma I experienced because I didn't want my coworkers to see me as weak.
I never sought help when I was at the police department, and at the time I didn't feel that I needed help. But now that I'm retired and I could speak about it, I was there for 9/11. I was, I've seen.
Oh. Yeah, no.
Kids dead from their parents, like just the smells, the sounds, and just you're laying in bed. That's stuff that plays over and over in your head. I mean, I was 29 years with the NYPD. I've seen it pretty much everything. Like there's probably no way of dying that I have not seen or experienced. If you were in a bad scene of an accident, there's a body part here, a head over there, and they come and clean the scene up. And afterwards, you're looking at your partner like, hey, what's for dinner? You have to find a coping mechanism. And unfortunately, lots of times with law enforcement is you drink with your friends and you push it down. And I'm not a drinker, but when I was at the police department, it's probably the most I've ever drank in my whole entire life and ever will drink. It doesn't matter what time you're working. If you get off at 8 in the morning, you're going to a bar at 8 in the morning. And that's kind of how, when I was with the police department, that's kind of how we would deal with it. And you wouldn't speak about your traumas or your issues. You just try to talk about other things with the guys, and you never seeked help.
Well, thank you for sharing, and I'm glad you shared it, because can you imagine how I would feel as a woman? Immediately when you see a woman in the firehouse, the guys they'll say that I'm emotional, right? Oh, you're being a woman, you're emotional. Oh, of course you feel that way. What are you gonna cry? And so I will overcompensate and not talk about my feelings or how that call we just went on made me feel, because they already think I'm weak. They already think that I don't belong, or I'm not tough, or I'm not strong. So I also would go to the bars after work and just, kind of feel better. Now, I still don't really talk to my crew about any feelings that I have, but I do talk to a therapist. So I did find an outlet. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that, it's not weak, we're not weak, and anyone, no matter what gender or how they look, can feel that way.
All right, thank you.
I think it's this funny paradoxical thing where you feeling that you can't be open because it's going to show weakness is actually your greatest form of strength. Now that I have become more vulnerable and open, that has been like the super highway into communicating with other people and helping them. And it's funny the amount of times I've, mentioned these things amongst a group and no one really seems too interested, because again, mindfulness meditation, what are you talking about? But then at 9 o'clock at night, I got a guy texting me saying, hey man, what was that book? Or hey man, what was that, what was that breathwork technique you mentioned? And that's when you know that, regardless of what other people think, people do want to hear these things, and it does really help. So being open and vulnerable It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. And thanks for sharing.
No, it's great that you do that, because just by you speaking that, you're opening the minds to other people, and they're not gonna they don't want to say it in front of other people. You get that text, hey, what was this about? What's that about? So I think all of us are curious and want to know about it, but by someone like you to help people take that first step forward, it's going to make such a big difference.
And I think, having emotional intelligence, be that shoulder to cry on for other people, be the one that they confide in. You can still be that other guy. You can still be the brave firefighter, popping doors and doing your thing. You can have both. It's not like you can't be one without the other. And I think the greatest thing and the most effective firefighter is when you can balance those things, because ultimately you're going to be able to do your job really well, and you're going to be able to care for people really well, the public and our brothers and sisters.
The best part of my job is when people simply say thank you.
Hi. Yes. So I've wanted to be a firefighter since I was a kid. I've been doing it for about I make 20 years next month. Even after being in the fire service for as long as I've been in the fire service, it's not really expected that people say thank you. When we get that call and those tones go off, we're out of the station, we get there, we do our job, and it's just like, okay, cool. After we finish, everything's said and done. There's a few other family members that are at the house who are sad and crying, and then you have one person who's kind of like, they actually come up to us and they say thank you. That really goes a long way. Thank you goes a really long way. So yeah, I have to say that is, I guess, one of the best parts of actually being a first responder is when you actually get a thank you, because it's never really expected. Sometimes you don't really get it. I hear a lot of chairs.
Yeah, I'd say I feel like that'll probably be the whole room. Yeah, I'm about to say that.
The last person, I got everybody up.
People have no idea how much we appreciate a thank you. You don't have to give us a plaque. You don't have to give us Starbucks. You don't have to give me a donut. A thank you goes a long way.
You can give me a middle finger, but say thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
We were on the mound for 9/11, going there and coming back. You actually have people holding signs and thanking us, and you're in there and you're like, what is going on? Like, this is like an out-of-body experience. Like, this didn't really happen. And then you'd be like, you said a Starbucks. That's the first time anyone ever bought me Starbucks when I was in uniform. Like, here. I'm like, what? Like, no, thank you for your service. Like, thank you. And I was like, wow, that's really touching. And it helped you get through the days through 9/11, because, we just lost a lot of cops, a lot of firemen, civilians, and you don't know what's going on. And then to see that and coming off the mound, and you're dirty, sweat, breathing those toxins in, and you have people holding signs, and like, wow, people actually do really care. And it kind of brought the human side back and made you feel appreciated. But it helped you get through the days. So yeah, thank yous do go a really long way.
I think just being here, being a first responder, whether you are a nurse or a firefighter or a police officer, I think what we do is such a thankless profession that when that one person or that one patient or their family does actually say thank you, it like almost makes everything worth it. Like, oh my God, you see me. You see all the work that I've been trying to do to keep your family member alive. Like, I thought no one noticed, because I was gonna do it regardless, because this is what I'm here to do. So for people to really take a step back and be like, wow, like, thank you so much. It warms your heart to feel seen, kind of like we talked about earlier.
One thing I do want to say is, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you to anyone who's watching, because the one thing, and I think we can all agree on, is we love doing our jobs, but the reason we come back day after day is I work with some badass men and women, and I'm so proud to stand amongst you guys. I'm so happy that you guys shared your stories, and I just want to say thank you, because I think this is special. So,
well, thank you all. That is a wrap on this episode. Thank you.